are 4 ways I can defend murder. Number 1, it wasn't murder. It was suicide or accidental. Number 2, you didn't do it. Number 3, you were legally justified, like the protection of your home or self-defense. Number 4, the killing was excusable.
For the next month, we're going to be talking about movies that involve justice or that take place in courtrooms. Justice Night Extravaganza will take us to places from the courtroom to, well, mainly just the courtroom. Tonight we're talking about Otto Preminger's 1959 Anatomy of a Murder, which has been called the finest pure trial movie ever made.
Also looked for a certain undergarment of Mrs. Mannion's, but we didn't find it.
Will the attorneys for both sides approach the bench, please?
Mr. Bigler, you finally got your rape into the case, and I think all the details should now be made clear to the jury. Do you agree, Mr. Ludwig?
Absolutely.
What exactly was the undergarment just referred to?
Panties, Your Honor.
Based on the 1957 novel Anatomy of a Murder by Robert Traver. Traver was the pen name of John D. Volker. Volker was a noted lawyer from Upper Michigan with ambitious political goals. He was Marquette County prosecutor, a member of the Michigan Bar Association, and even assisted the Attorney General in investigating the Michigan legislature for bribery. After his political career stalled out and he lost re-election, he began a private practice, which became infamous for a case called the People versus Coleman Peterson. Peterson was a war veteran of 2 wars, Korea and World War II, that shot a bar owner after Peterson's wife claimed she had been raped and beaten. What made it famous, or infamous, was that Volker hunted down and successfully used a little-known insanity defense called irresistible impulse. Nobody had even heard of it, much less used it, since the People versus Durfee in the 1880s. In exchange for his top-shelf defense, Volker got stiffed by Coleman Peterson and his wife, who took off without paying, leaving him with the murder weapon, but not the $3,000 he was owed. After Volker closed up his office, Governor Soapy Williams appointed Volker to the Michigan Supreme Court. At the same time, Volker had a successful career as a writer, and in 1957, he managed to turn the Coleman Peterson story into the novel Anatomy of a Murder.
Now, Doctor, if a woman says that she has had intercourse with a certain man, and the man is proved fertile even though no evidence is found in the woman's body, could a lawyer, say a prosecuting attorney, could he use this as evidence that the woman is lying?
Your Honor, I object to this line of questioning.
The novel was purchased by Otto Preminger for the film rights. The movie stars Jimmy Stewart as the lawyer, Paul Begler, Lee Remick as Laura Mannion, Ben Gazzara as Lieutenant Frederick Mannion, his client. Mannion is accused of shooting and killing a bar owner after his beautiful and flirtatious wife, Laura, claims that she was raped by him. On the opposing side, George C. Scott plays the big city assistant state attorney, Claude Dancer, and Brooks West, the prosecutor. Joseph N. Welch, the real-life famous lawyer who served the Army during the McCarthy hearings, delivering the famous line, "Have you no sense of decency, sir?" which basically ended McCarthy's power, played the judge who hears the case.
Let us not assassinate this lad further, Senator. You've done enough. Have you no sense of decency, sir? At long last, have you left no sense of decency?
They filmed the movie in the Upper Peninsula, including at Volker's real office, Ishpeming, where Volker lived and worked his whole life, Big Bay, and Marquette. The scene of the murder in the film was actually 1 block from where the real Coleman Peterson murdered the bar owner. This sense of realness and authenticity has been highly praised by critics, many of whom have said that Anatomy of a Murder is one of the best trial films ever made, including the American Bar Association in their 1989 12 Best Trial Films of All Time list. It's ranked number 4 in the ABA's 25 Greatest Legal Movies. Anatomy of a Murder has been used in law classes as it shows every single step of preparing for trial. It's so close to the actual case and trial that the victim's daughter actually tried to sue for damages and libel. Another highly praised part of this film is that Duke Ellington and Billy Strayhorn came along to compose a score and have Duke appear in the film. Duke Ellington plays Pye, a piano player at the bar where the murder happens. Ellington's orchestra members appear in a bar scene, and has been praised for being one of the first big Hollywood films with non-diegetic music composed by African Americans. It's also a landmark in what words are allowed. Words like spermatogenesis, contraceptive, and climax were not allowed in movies under the Hays Code, although it was eventually pointed out that these are actually clinically acceptable words. and that meant it did get passed through the censors.
And these 12 people are asked to judge another human being as different from them as they are from each other. And in their judgment, they must become of one mind, unanimous. It's one of the miracles of man's disorganized soul that they can do it. In most instances, do it right well. God bless juries.
Before I introduce the panel, please like this video and subscribe to the Movie Night Extravaganza YouTube channel. Then hit that bell to get notified whenever we're streaming. Super chats are now open. If you have any pressing questions, send us a super chat, which helps me maintain the expenses for the show, which I am obligated by the rules of the Geneva Convention to stop everything and ask the panel. Another way to help us out is to become a patron and give us money every month. In exchange, you get access to all of our after parties, bonus content, and we'll tell you even more movies we watched recently. Patreon.com/Movie Night Extra. We have a Movie Night Extravaganza Discord. There's an invite link in the episode description, and we have a Letterboxd HQ account. So those are 2 more places to follow along with us. Okay, let me introduce the illustrious panel. Conan Neutron is the host of Protonic Reversal, co-host of Movie Night Extravaganza, and the frontman for the band Conan Neutron and the Secret Friends. You can check out his music and hopefully buy some at neutronfriends.bandcamp.com. Kristina Oakes is a co-host of Movie Night Extravaganza and a Twitch streamer. You can find her streaming at twitch.tv/Cosmopolitics. All of her social media accounts are also at Cosmopolitics. She's on Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky, and even occasionally on Letterboxd. I, of course, am your host and the guy most likely to have a Gone Fishing sign on my law office door, Forrest Miller. I did not know the word panties was so controversial.
It's different times. That's really what it is.
It's panties, Your Honor.
Whoops, that's there. You got a solo layout for that one. There you go.
You gotta. We have like. I wish we could. I mean, I'm sure someone can, but program it every time we say panties, the person gets like a full solo layout. Panties.
I don't do it.
Your Honor.
I don't know
he
when you
trying
do that.
to say panties. Yeah.
I will say that the Gone Fishing sign, if you're talking about the Upper Peninsula, completely in character. That's like fishing is like fishing is life there.
But this guy is like John Volker, right? The guy that was Robert Travers, that was his pen name. Like, you know, he ended up as a Michigan state Supreme Court justice, but he's also like, they have like a bunch of fishing museums and they have like these life-size portraits of him do it because I guess he contributed a lot, his diaries and everything, to the fishing industry. And so every time they had one of his portraits for the Michigan state like the Supreme Court, they would have like a fishing lure or something on his desk, like the painter would be in there too.
Man loved to fish.
He did.
Upper Peninsula, a lot of people don't know that much about the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. Michigan, of course, is a state that is separated by a Great Lake, and the bottom half and the top half don't really have that much in common with each other.
Yeah.
Upper Peninsula of Michigan really should be its own state. And let's come from, you know, like sometimes it's like North Dakota, South Dakota, whatever, who cares?
So not Canada then, being the
I mean, actually, they'd probably be better off with Canada at this point. Right? But there also isn't a whole lot of Upper Peninsula culture or notable historical events or something. So it's interesting that this looms so large as an Upper Peninsula thing, because they did film a lot of this on locations, including the Marquette courthouse, which is kind of cool. And they used a lot of actual locations, some of which I've played a decent amount of shows up there. I've played oh yeah, that's from Anatomy of a Murder. Like it looks the same. It hasn't changed at all, you know. But I think ultimately when it comes down to it, for me, for this movie, this is one I saw on a Criterion Challenge pretty early on, I think. And I was like, wow, is this the best procedural that ever has been made in film? And the answer to that is probably, from my perspective. Yeah. And also because I never had seen Jimmy Stewart in anything. Of course I see him in a Rear Window, but I never see him in anything where he's like, oh no, everyone's kind of a bit of a scumbag in this, you know, there's no not everyone's a scumbag, but everyone's a little bit there's no, I mean, they say it early on, right? You know, it's not about whether you like the person. You don't have to love them, just defend them.
Which, I mean, it's probably going to be a theme that comes up, multiple times during this Justice Night Extravaganza month, because I feel like that kind of theme comes up a lot in these movies. I feel like, Jimmy Stewart's Rear Window performance is definitely his most scumbaggish. I mean, I guess he's a little bit sleazy in Vertigo too. But
yeah, he has his. I mean, Vertigo's one of my favorite movies of all time. But there's definitely a certain aspect of what he's doing here. First of all, he's very funny. I think people don't give credit for how funny this movie is. Like in a way that's, again, you got to realize it's of the times, like 1959, right?
Yeah.
And also you have to understand that there weren't, like, we have grown up around courtroom procedural TV shows. They're everywhere. You know, there's multiple like series that they just go on for forever, and we're used to seeing that. People were not used to seeing that. And why it's interesting that Preminger did this. Preminger, first movie I saw of his was Advising Consent, which is maybe one of the best movies about senatorial process and like the Senate and like what the Senate does. Like they should teach it in civics class, frankly, because it's like it does a better job of showing that than any history books would.
What about another Jimmy Stewart movie, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington?
Of course I've seen Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. I've seen plenty of Jimmy Stewart movies. I'm just saying, I almost said Jimmy Smith's for some reason. I don't know.
I know.
It's like I've seen plenty of those too. But there's something, you know, what I'm getting at is that there's something with his portrayal here that it's unique. It's unique, and it's unique in a way that it almost is very modern in the way that it is. Because it's sort of, and I was thinking about other courtroom movies, and that you don't really see, like, you tend to see a lot of white hat, black hat situations, right? You see a lot of, hey, this is the good lawyer, this is the scummy corporate lawyer, so on and so on. And I think that it's interesting to see, like, it's an opportunity for him early on, right? Him and his rummy lawyer buddy, and he's like, take it, you've heard of it, you've definitely heard of it, go take the case.
Yeah.
And it's so funny to think about it from that perspective, because we just weren't seeing that, because this is years before who's the guy that did all the ones that the Grisham ones and all those like way before any of that.
Also, this is before the Judgment Nuremberg movie as well. That came out in like 63, I believe.
That's right.
62, 63. Yeah. So like it was almost like this was the period of like courtroom dramas. A lot of people think like true crime obsession started in the last like 20 years. I'm like, nope, Hollywood was ahead of its time by doing some very serious stuff. And of course, you have some comedic ones as well. But people were interested in learning and knowing about, what the process is like when you're in a courtroom and you're on trial for something.
Yeah. Well, and Preminger's father was like an Austrian prosecutor. Like he was well respected for that. And then, of course, they were a Jewish family, so they dipped out of Austria at a good time.
Turns out just in time.
Yeah.
Well, the only one I can think of that's very much, well, first of all, Anatomy of a Fall. Clearly, Justine Trent likes this movie because there's many aspects of it in Anatomy of a Fall, which is a movie I like. And
besides the title.
Yeah, exactly. It's in the title. So he's not trying to hide it or anything. But it is like when people are like, "Oh, I really love Anatomy of a Fall. Have you seen Anatomy of Murder? What's that?" That's like, okay. Well, you should do yourself a service to watch it, if nothing else, because of all the like amazing performances that are all like, this is Frank Gazzaro, and he's like young. This is like one of George C. Scott's first roles. There's like people that are, from like all these other things that are in there, and it's interesting to me too. I saw The Verdict, 1982, The Verdict with Paul Newman and Charlotte Rampling and whatnot.
Yeah.
And that's one of the only ones I saw that kind of gets the vibe of just like, oh yeah, this is a job, and like sometimes business isn't good, and then like the idea of murder trial is a big deal. Like it's you don't normally see it from that perspective. You usually see it lawyers don't seem to have money problems in any of the modern media that we see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why is because a lot of lawyers don't, but there's different kinds of law.
Yeah.
It isn't just corporate law.
I mean, I think the one that gets like closest to like the ambulance chasing style, I mean, is obviously, Better Call Saul, where he's going out like trying to ambulance chase, but that's still like a different, like the level that we've taken lawyers to, right? Like a lot of times we're very disdainful of certain kinds of lawyers, definitely, like ambulance chasers and like the more scummy
lawyers.
Exactly, but I think that there's still kind of a hollowed ground for like trial lawyers at times, at least, you know what I mean? Because it's like all right, these are like even people that even like the law team. I mean, they've disgraced themselves in other ways. Pretty much everybody involved in it, but like even during like the OJ trial or something like that, right? Like there was still an
They
understanding,
knew he was guilty.
like, but there was still like an understanding that like everybody needs a trial lawyer. Like whether your lawyer think you're guilty,
or the dream
you know what I mean?
team.
Yeah.
Well, and it's, I mean, we were talking about right before we went on air that this is the origin of the I'm just a simple country lawyer.
Yeah.
How many times have we seen it? It's been
I've
homage.
seen
It's
that-
been
Or I'm a really
paraphrased.
good lawyer, like Daredevil.
Yeah, or yeah, just any.
I'm a
It's-
blank lawyer.
I'm a caveman lawyer. Your loud sounds frighten me. You know, like whatever. Used for comedy, used for dramatic purposes. It's from this movie.
And I've seen
crazy.
that scene, but I think didn't really know the rest of the movie like before watching it. So I've seen that scene where Jimmy Stewart does the whole country lawyer bit, but I don't think.
But you can't see the rest of it. Well, and so that's what's interesting to me is that it shows the process of gathering evidence and the process of interviewing somebody, and because of that, it's long. This is a long movie, but it shows you the entire process. And for me, I think it's like super interesting. And I say that as someone that, those TV shows and stuff, kind of not really my vibe. Like I don't hate on them, but it's just not like it puts me to sleep immediately. Yeah. And this is like anything but that for me.
Yeah.
I
still show it in certain like in law schools because it shows every stage of the evidence gathering and talking to the witness. Like it shows every stage of the process. So they actually show this a lot of times because it's like an ABA approved movie that they push a bunch.
That rocks.
Yeah.
I mean, and how awesome must it be for people studying law to see an awesome movie too? It's like,
yeah,
this is just also a good movie.
I just watched the movie. But yeah, Kristina, what were you gonna say?
Go, Kristina.
Of course, I asked her when she's drinking.
So, as someone who grew up watching court TV and watching shows like Forensic Files or watching the Phil Spector murder trial and the Casey Anthony one, she's making a comeback now, and she murdered her daughter. We only see what's on camera. We don't see what the lawyers are doing behind the scenes and how they gather evidence. Like, what is the process like? How do they retrieve it? How do they file it? What do they use? What do they, redact or, keep hidden as evidence that might, contradict their clients' innocence or guilt. So that's what's fascinating about this movie. But, a lot of, I wasn't a criminal justice major. I was a psychology major. And some of my friends who work into criminal justice said, they were watching movies like this, and even like for fun, like My Cousin Vinny and Legally Blonde, like some of these movies that we're gonna be talking about
this month.
This month, yeah. So it's like it's fascinating that some people are not aware that this is the film that started it all.
Right, because I mean, there wasn't a lot of interest in showing that part of the process by anyone. And Preminger was the first one to be like, actually, this would be a really cool thing to set as a drama. And God, to get such talent too. Again, Jimmy Stewart was a known commodity. This was awesome. Like Ben Gazzara, George C. Scott, one of his first roles. Yeah. Lee Remick, who is a key player in Facing the Crowd, but she was super young then. That's kind of the point of the character. But she's Days of Wine and Roses, Omen. I mean, like so many great movies Lee Remick's in.
Yeah.
There was No, I was just looking at the Tropepedia and like confirmed. Yes, this is the
it is the first one, right? Yeah.
I'm just a humble lawyer from the back. Blah blah blah.
Yeah. I mean, and we think of that as like a thing that a lawyer says, right?
Yes, but they don't.
And it's amazing too because I know people that like are actual lawyers, like my cousin, that are not. That are usually like, oh yeah, it's not like that at all. Like when it's the whole like dramatic aspects of objection overruled, et cetera, et cetera. You can't handle the truth, which that was technically an inquest, but anyway. But it is funny that how it's played for. So first of all, like the actual judge in this, who, by the way, not in the movie, but in life, had one of the best, hardest lines of all time.
Yeah.
Which is as you mentioned, the
Have
intro.
You no decency.
Yeah. Like,
have you no sense of decency, sir? have you no sense of decency?
I mean, he knew McCarthy, so he, you know.
I mean, he single-handedly torpedoed McCarthy. Like that's
They
the
also
Army
know how to
McCarthy
do it.
hearings where the CIA pretty much their law, CIA and FBI, their ruling came down like, hey, it's time to torpedo McCarthy so we can salvage McCarthyism as a way to like bring people down, but like, you know, more low key.
Yeah.
Right.
Getting out of hand.
It's interesting in and of itself too, for everything it's about that. But yeah, I mean, he actually practiced law. That's the thing, Joseph Welch. Like he actually practiced law,
and it's his one. He wasn't in any other movies. This is like his one.
This is one movie. He's in like the documentary that we were trying to find out if we could legally watch about this movie.
He was probably thinking, I was in one movie. Remember how I took down McCarthy?
But yeah, he's in right. Remember? You only need the one, and like that archival footage must be used in like 1,000 documentaries or something, because of course it would be, right?
Yeah.
And that's another one that we think of today. You know, like when someone gets got in a hearing, you know, like what is the first thing you think of? And it's that, and it's like hilarious. Yeah. No, that's the actual dude. That wasn't even from a movie, but the dude playing the judge in this. The one who like landed like that baller line.
The trope article where they go through like all, you know, like the translation
lawyer films.
It also reminded me that Sam Irwin, who did the Watergate hearings, right? Like the main guy who running the Watergate Senate hearings, he would also go, "I'm a simple country lawyer." That was so he took that from this movie.
He took it from that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. And what's interesting about like judges and trials in general is like, you know, the lawyers do all the work, really. The judge just determines what the lawyer can and can't get away with, you know, objection sustained, overruled, whatever. It kind of reminded me with the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial, like the difference between his lawyers and her lawyers. Her lawyers were like jokes. Like they were treated like a circus, while his lawyers were like, can we just stick to what's the subject matter, the questioning, whatever. And even the judge, who was a woman, was getting very like ticked off by Heard's side. And that's something that I pay attention to, how judges interact or react to things when I'm looking back at watching like clips from like older trials, because some, you know, judges, they see a spectacle in the courtroom and they're just completely annoyed by it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It depends on the judge, right? Yeah. Exactly. And that's all about picking your who's presiding over the trial, why that's important.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's another line in this that I feel like goes along with that too. The line that Ben Gazzara says, "How can a jury disregard what they've already heard?" And Jimmy Stewart says back to him, "They can't." Like that's literally like, because, you know, so that's another part of it, right? That even if a lawyer knows that they're overstepping the bounds of what's going to be allowed, they know that they're still swaying the jury. Like the jury can't erase that from their memory, even though they're like, you know, strike what you just heard, jury. Jury can't do that. They're swayed one way or the other. And that's the line. That's something that I've also thought about a lot. I'm like, whenever they do that in a movie, or like, you know, we're watching a court case or something and they do that, it's like, strike that from the record. And it's like, yeah, but they heard it already.
They already heard it. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And it reminds me of like Bailey Sarian did a Mystery Makeup Monday episode where she was talking about the importance of jury duty, about how those people, you know, they might let an actual guilty person get off or put an innocent person in prison. And they're like, you know, jury duty matters. Like you get time off of work, but you might be dealing with a serious case that will impact the individual's life.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, they sequester you, which is the same thing that Conclave. It's very funny that they used, you know, the whole sequester thing throughout Conclave.
We didn't kill the pub, y'all. We did it.
I know, exactly. Broke the curse
for a different use of sequester. But like the entire thing is like, you're not supposed to read the newspapers. You're not supposed to have your phone with you, because then you might see something that's going to sway the case. You're supposed to be like, you're pretty much locked into a hotel room and kept there for as long as the trial goes on. I mean, if you get stuck doing like a OJ style trial where it's like weeks and weeks and weeks of stuff, like it's pretty much like they've plucked you out of your life. And like,
and most people can't do that. Right. Yeah, exactly. I've been called for jury duty so many times. I've always been dismissed. I think one time it actually went to like when they started asking questions to the panel ever. And that's like in my entire life. But I was one of those things where it's like, if I ever got picked, I would definitely serve. Because if you don't like our justice system and who amongst us does, and you choose not to do jury duty, you are the problem.
Yep, exactly. And it's
So
interesting.
clip that
too.
for us. Put that as our
Yeah.
We're a civically minded podcast.
That will make the
Engaged.
TikToks go nuts. But yeah, with like again, like with jury duty and all that, a lot of people just think, oh, it's a boring thing. I'm like, no, but also too, in the days of social media, it's gonna be very impossible to find like a jury for Luigi Mangione. Like it's gonna be impossible to find like, high profile cases that are all over social media, all over streaming. Back then, in Anatomy of Murder, it was just easier because there was just
well, you do it.
There wasn't.
He was in his early stages.
It's very funny where he goes, they're literally just asking the entire row of people on the jury, which I don't think they do. They don't do it in front of the whole courtroom now, but like in this, they're just saying they're like, do you know anybody in law enforcement? They're like, no. Yeah. Like, do you know anybody involved in this case? You know, have you seen that lady before? They're all like, no. And he's like, wow. He's like in half an hour, pretty much you guys have, or like half an afternoon, you guys have already done the whole.
Already like narrowed it down.
I'd be like, who's he? He's Italian. Okay, I've never seen an Italian in my life.
I will say the best part of jury. By the way, the show Jury Duty. Here's me advocating for a show. This is how badass this show is. The show Jury Duty is absolutely fantastic. But to see people when you're actually getting selected for jury duty with their lame as hell excuses that they clearly did not tell to another human being before they spoke aloud. Oh my god, it's exquisite because it's like, okay, did you think about what you're saying before you said it, because you clearly didn't. Yeah. And everybody's trying to get out of it, and they're all giving the lamest excuses. And it's hilarious. I'm like, this should be a show. And so the fact that they did that, well, and I don't want to spoil the show, but James Marsden is great in it.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know if it's a show you can do more than one time, but holy crap, was that entertaining. Yeah. I also want to say Anatomy of a Murder nominated for all kinds of things Oscar-wise.
Yeah.
Very, very well regarded at the time.
Wins?
It got decimated because this was the Ben-Hur year. This was when Ben-Hur won like 11 Oscars, which was the record for many, many years until it was tied by Titanic and Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it got trounced that year. Well, everything got trounced that year.
Yeah.
Ben-Hur really did shake the whole Oscars up.
But I mean that it beat out 400 Blows, the Truffaut movie, North by Northwest. This, I mean, like it was a strong year, but it was everybody. Ben-Hur. We only want Ben-Hur.
Yeah, it was like a 1939. It was like a 1939 year where it's like Gone with the Wind took everything, but all movies were good and hits.
Yeah.
They'd have to make
2004.
They couldn't make Ben-Hur today because of woke. You'd have to make it Ben, they, them. You know what I mean?
Got a quick little side. It reminds me of
Some Like It Hot was that year too.
Oh, but it did. So it did. It absolutely crushed it at the Grammys, which is kind of crazy. It got best musical.
Duke Ellington.
It's Duke Ellington, and so that brings us to the music, which of course is lovely, and it's a first. It's a first.
Yeah, it's first non-diegetic score, which means score that's in the movie that's not being. I mean, it is at times it's played by the orchestra, but movie that's not played by anybody or whatever. Non-diegetic score composed by African Americans. Yeah,
they know what's They're well aware the music's playing. That's basically the best way to put it. Yeah.
In America, this is my correction, because Louis Malle did Elevator to the Gallows, which was Miles Davis the year before, but that was France. Yeah. This is the U.S. So, and also it's crazy that it took almost till the 60s for that to happen. But I mean, think about what the late 50s were like, and
By the way,
what were they like, Conan?
Not great. Great if you're a dude that looked like me, and I ain't talking about the coat.
So now canceled. I guess they only did it from 1959 to 1964. Best performance by an orchestra, hyphen for dancing. That was one of the Grammys at the time.
You mean, man, where was Shirley Temple dancing with that one black guy on the stairs? That would have been a hit if that existed back then. But yeah, it's interesting seeing how certain Grammy awards come and like they come and go or whatever, and it's just like,
Yeah.
But that one, they could have just said best orchestra in general, but not.
You didn't even know those qualifiers. Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, Preminger did not get a best directing nomination for this, which is crazy. But it's also like William Wyler, like Billy Wilder, like Fred.
But at the time, if you got best picture, it was the director would get the nominee. Now it's now it's the money people that they give the
that's right
the best picture to.
But
I
would like to thank Harvey Weinstein for this award.
Adrian Brody is like, I'd like to thank Harvey Weinstein's kids.
It's also the Black Orpheus here too. That's another here.
Best motion picture, best actor, best supporting actor for George C. Scott. And also for Arthur O'Connell, they both got
so they both got nominated. See, we still have awards in the brain, so we're gonna kind of detox. By doing this. But it's not helping at all. Yeah, Arthur O'Connell and George C. Scott, and then that with Network as well. But they lost to Hugh Griffith.
Yeah. It's interesting because a lot of these actors have been in their their career started like in the 30s for like Jimmy Stewart. I think George C. Scott as well. So it's like, these are well-established, male actors who don't, succumb to like the curse of like
George C. Scott would have had to be like 5 or 6 years old.
I think he started in like mid 40s, I think, when his career started.
As a Broadway actor. So this was only his second. Yeah. This was only his second movie that he was ever in. But he was a Broadway actor for a long time, which when you see him talk like in an interview or something, you can be like, oh yeah, that's a Broadway guy. But then his roles, you watch his roles, and like besides this movie where he's like, oh hello, and there's like that's his Ben Burgess, Lansing, Michigan voice.
But it's crazy that we think of him as such a big screen actor. Think of him in things like Patton and whatnot. We're like, oh yeah, and freaking
But I was going to say
Kubrick,
he's so much more he's so much more flamboyant and stuff than like his kind of tough guy act like
as a dude,
sure, or like but as like a performer even I think when he's
but also what's crazy like it's Ben Gazzara's third movie too, and his first like kind of big one too. And he's another one. He did like a bunch of Tennessee Williams things. Like he did, I think his second movie was actually a Tennessee Williams adaptation. And it's crazy when you think about like his career, right? Like all the crazy stuff he did with like Cassavetes and stuff like that, and like just being like one of the great character actor dudes like over the years, like up into becoming an old man. And he's like very young in this, very young.
Yeah.
And what's the guy and his alcoholic buddy is like a old Hollywood actor. What's his name? Is it Arthur O'Connell? Is that right?
Yeah.
The older fella. Like, and he was in a bunch of he's in the that guy was in the Naked City, which is badass. That's a fantastic movie.
And there's 8 million people in New York City alone, and these are one of the best stories.
Which that's where that freaking trope came from.
Yeah,
but that guy was in like a lot of old Hollywood stuff.
They had a whole TV show. They had a whole Naked City TV show where they would every time like I think it was very short running, but every time they would try to give you another one of their stories, and it's like okay, like let's calm down.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's enough. It's enough. And then people only think of him as like Poseidon Adventure and stuff. It's like oh no, that dude had a gigantic career.
And Shelley Winters was in the Poseidon too, but she already had a well-established career 20 years before that. Like it's crazy.
Well, that was hey, we got these great character actors and no one knows what to do with. But I mean, dude, like Arthur O'Connell was in Citizen Kane.
Citizen Kane, don't you mean the greatest film of all time?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I heard that was John Dielman, but I don't know. Maybe I heard.
I like so like the British, like the early version of like kind of like the BAFTAs or whatever. They nominated Joseph Welch for most promising newcomer to film.
Oh really? Wow, nailed it.
Well, that's well, I just feel like when it comes to this film, with Jimmy Stewart, Jimmy Stewart is like, the star of it. Like people are gonna run to anything he does in a film because he's in so many well-respected films. It's like it's amazing. Like I don't think he ever got the label box office poison like so many women in Hollywood received.
Well, he was like he's the All-American, right? Like he's And when you think of like down, like what we like about America, what we respect about America, right? Like it's like simple virtue and like somebody. I mean, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington is a perfect example where he's like, you know, he's a simple populist man that's standing up to the big evil Washington people, right? Like it's the simple values. It's, you know, having like this sense of virtue, even in this movie where he's kind of he's among very slimy people, and he himself is not a perfect person, right? Like.
Well, it's a wonderful life. Yeah. I mean, like George Bailey.
Share the brain again.
I know, share brain again. It's and then, you know, all the stuff with Hitchcock, you know, Rope. We talked about Rope on this very show. Harvey, you know, Harvey was a great one.
50?
Yeah, Rear Window, obviously Rear Window, you know, like Vertigo, one of my favorites of all time. Oh, Bell, Book and Candle, by the way. A lot of people never talk about Bell, Book and Candle. If we ever do a witches episode, we definitely have to include.
There was also
witches.
there was some
Kick-Ass
we should do a month of witch movies, but there was also like once the conservative movement kind of got started, there was some very manipulative uses of that, like the Jimmy Stewart. I mean, Jimmy Stewart, like playing on American minds, that being like, you know, like Congress is wasting all of your money. Oh shucks, what do we know about like doing like how capitalism works straight to like people like movies and stuff like that, because they were playing on that down home like all American style that Jimmy Stewart had.
Well, I got weaponized, sure, like a lot of things. But it is so. I guess what I'm driving at though is that's one of the reasons why I seen him in something like Anatomy of Murder, which is not that soon after Vertigo, or you know, a couple of the other awesome Hitchcock ones he was doing. But it's like, oh, you get to see him do something a bit different, but in the same way that we see someone that's a good actor like doing like cool but different stuff, like a Willem Dafoe or something.
I mean, he's horrifyingly sleazy in Rear Window. Like, it's like
Jimmy Stewart, you're an all-American man. What happened to you?
I think I'd seen a bunch of different, like I'd seen like most of the parts of Rear Window, but I can't remember. I think it was 2 years ago or a year ago that I finally watched like the entire thing and sat down. It was before we did Rope. I watched it, and
we should do a Hitchcock month.
It was. I love Hitchcock. I love Hitchcock. So, but like it was. I remember like feeling kind of gross and like, because I just watched Vertigo and then I watched Rear Window, and I have Vertigo on VHS down here, but my skin was like crawling watching Jimmy Stewart do the Rear Window thing with his binoculars. I was like, Jimmy Stewart. I mean, he's
like, forget, man's a voyeur in that. Oh geez, oh geez. But I think that's why it's cool to see him do something kind of different. I mean, it's not as crazy as Andy Griffith in Face in the Crowd or something. We're like, oh my god, wow, like you know, which is the equivalent of
Sheriff,
like Hugh Grant in Heretic is the only equivalent I can think of. Where we're like, I feel like I shouldn't be seeing this, yet here I am, and he's so good.
Handsome devil, but he's like, I played an Oompa Loompa. I'm going to do something crazier, and I'm like, oh, cool.
Like, I'm the most evil dude ever, and like, okay, great, and the most insufferable guy on Reddit at the same time. But Face in the Crowd, which I definitely want to do on the show at some point, also starring Lee Remick, is another great example of just someone like, oh no, you're just a good actor. You got known for like one thing, but you're just good at this, and it's like it very easily could have gone the other way. It could have been like a Robert Mitchum kind of situation where you're like, oh, you're the best villain of all time.
Known as sheriff, you know, it's
this is America's small town sheriff instead.
And Matlock too. He did Matlock, right?
And Matlock, yeah, you're right.
That's what's his like other two roles. It's like what's his face from I, German Genie, and then like Dallas or whatever the hell. Like there are certain actors like that could have gone a different direction, you know, playing like clean cut. They might have done a role that's a bit more, you know, edgy or has some more meat to it. Larry Hagman. He actually was also RJ in the who shot JR? Yeah, JR in Dallas or Dynasty, whatever, was actually kind of a sleazeball. But it's interesting because I keep forgetting that happened with Andy Griffin, though, that he actually could have had a serious, you know, career in Hollywood.
He is so terrifying in Face in the Crowd and is absolutely the proto-Trump. I mean, it's basically, you know, Bob Roberts, but like from the 50s.
Before we move too far away from the Jimmy Stewart thing, I wanted to play this story. This is from the documentary they did about making of.
Oh, cool. Yeah. I'm. By the way, Anatomy of a Murder in the Criterion Collection, so it's a bummer to see it not streaming
right, let's
because
have
like
it.
the extras
Yeah.
are so fucking cool in this, and it's a drag.
So I found this story hilarious, though. This is about Jimmy Stewart's dad's reaction to Anatomy of a Murder.
Oh
And,
God, how old was his dad then? Like in the 70s or something?
His dad had to be pretty old. But so this story really it cracked me up.
All right, let's have it.
George C. Scott. He hadn't done very many pictures, but this was a very good. When the picture was released, and everything, it was very good and started him in a very good career in the movie. My father, back in Indiana, Pennsylvania, where I was born and raised, and he had a hardware store back there all his life. And he never quite understood this idea of me becoming a movie actor. And the whole idea of the movies and but somebody came into the store and told him, and he said, "Boy, I saw your son in a picture the other day, and it's a dirty picture." I kind of, well, that evening, my dad called me up and said, "Now, wait a minute. A fellow just came in and told me about this picture, something about a murder or something, but he said it's a dirty picture." And I said, "No, Dad, I don't think it's about things that are sort of questionable, but it's not." He said, "Well, I don't like the thing at all, and I'm going to go to the Strand, the fellow owner of the Strand Theater down here, and I'm going to ask him not to show the picture here, and I'm going over to the Indiana Evening Gazette and tell them not to show the picture." Well, the fellow didn't do exactly what my dad asked him to do. The picture and the Indiana Evening Gazette didn't. And but it put in what my dad had to say about it. And the picture did better in Indiana, Pennsylvania than it had. And my mother saw it and talked to my dad, and I said, "Saturday afternoon, after you finish work at the, well, now I want you to come and see the picture." And he said, "I don't want to see the picture. I'm not going to see the picture. And I think it's a disgrace that the picture goes out with this filthy story and everything, and that everybody in town went to see it. I think that." Well, I talked to him several times about it, and he didn't change his mind. About, maybe 4 months later, he called me, and it turned out that he sneaked down to a drive-in in Homer City, and all by himself without telling anybody, and sneaked into the drive-in and saw the picture. And he called me. He said, "I just wanted to tell you I saw the picture." And I sort of take back a lot of what I said. There were just things in it that I don't see why you had to do. And one of them that I especially didn't think was necessary was when you were in the courtroom and pleading the case. Well, I didn't think you should have held the woman's panties up for everybody to see. And I said, "Well, I never this was for the defense. This was a very good point." And he said, "Well, I would have cut that out. And if you can do anything about it, if you can cut that panty thing out, I'd."
And they added 15 more instead.
Well, I was looking at who are considered like the greatest of like old Hollywood. Jimmy Stewart is number 3 after Humphrey Bogart's number 1, and Cary Grant's number 2 for like when it comes to the actors.
Yeah.
So so he did make an impact. I mean, he was again one of the first movie stars because his career started in the 30s. So
yeah. I just like the thought of Jimmy Stewart having like a even more conservative, like all-American dad.
That's
like,
even more than him. Yeah.
Yeah, even more than him. It's like, son, shucks, I don't think you should have held up the panties. I'm gonna tell the. Then he
did he not see Rear Window?
Like he stomped on up to the newspaper and was like, I demand you not show this movie, and then that made the entire town like the entire
like, wow, Jimmy Stewart's dad is saying this about his son's movie. We should go see it.
Well, I mean, I think every small town
campaigning.
Every small town has that, like, has the guy that runs like the hardware store, like the convenience store in the middle of it, that you're like, oh, well, if he's saying, like, if morally upright, Jimmy Stewart's dad saying that, like, I'm probably going to enjoy this because it's probably going to be funny.
Yeah.
No, it's crazy. Well, it's interesting that there's so many great performances in this, and it really does go through so many aspects of like the judicial process. That's one of the reasons why I just was dead set on us starting with it, because as much as like I'm super excited we're doing 12 Angry Men. Don't get me wrong, but it's like that's one side of it. That's like the jury side of it, right? This is like this is like the overall. Here's a bit of everything, kind of thing. And there's not that many movies that do that, and certainly not do it. They don't do it as eloquently.
Yeah.
It's a great ensemble too.
I think
it's for the most part, it's a dude's rock movie.
Except for Lee Remick. Yeah, it's exactly. Yeah, it's absolutely.
She's the Isabella Rossellini, but in a longer.
Well, there's also the daughter.
At the very least, it might be a dude slap movie, but
dude slap.
Yeah,
okay.
There's a lot of dudes rocking in this movie. I mean, you're not wrong. It's not as much as 12 Angry Men.
Slapping here.
Well,
I mean, you're acting hysterical.
Stop.
I'd love the fact also that Jimmy Stewart's from Indiana, Pennsylvania, which if I was writing like a parody of like a Jimmy Stewart type character, I'd call his like hometown Indiana, Pennsylvania or something like that. You know what I mean? Like,
just make a generic, like nowhere sounding name.
Yeah. Like Kansas, Oklahoma, like something like that. Like
Kansas, Oklahoma.
North, South Carolina. I don't know.
We're gonna workshop this. No, it's good though, and I think that it's also like, it's just it's why. Hey, what's up, man?
Picture.
Say picture again. I dare you.
I dare you. One more time. I had a great episode on Matt's show on Friday, by the way, for people. That might be a Three Stooges episode. I don't know. Like that seems like a thing that could.
12 Angry Broads. I'm ready for an all-female version of. Okay, let's do it.
They're broad serving on a jury. What could go wrong?
Yeah.
I think that was. Yeah.
I think I watched 12 Angry Men in pure mediation class for some reason.
Really, I watched it in 11th grade English, and I remember because we were doing we were reading the play of 12 Angry Men.
Right.
We've been arguing. Actually, no, that's actually a better title.
Oh man, get 12 angry women in a room. We're never going home. This case is never getting decided.
And we're gonna be sleeping on the couch. Thank you. Anyway, so ensemble. This is an ensemble. Everybody's like killing in this. And there's a lot of interiority to all the characters and we don't get, tons of time with everyone, but I think it works really well because it's what we almost look for in a streaming series or something now.
Yes.
Right? Because it's like you have the his buddy who, again, was in like a freaking Citizen Kane of all things and a billion of other movies. Like he's drunk. He's a drunk. He's a fallen on hard times like drunk who like at one point was a good lawyer. And he's the whole I'll stay clean so we can do this.
Yeah, he's almost like now I can't remember the guy's name that trains Rocky.
Burgess Meredith.
Yeah,
he's the Burgess Meredith of law.
For law, because he even has like the law book. Because he makes him read him law as he's getting hammered. He's like, "Come on, you're reading me law again." He's like, "Come on, Rock, you're reading me law again."
When I'm done with you, you're gonna object like lightning and litigate like thunder.
He did though. He did object like lightning and litigate like thunder.
Exactly. Dude did his job. Thank you.
I
that was off the cuff. That was not prepared material. Just so you know.
I love that Ben Gazzara.
He's guilty, Rock.
Anyone can see that, but can you convince the jury he's guilty?
Exactly.
But no, Ben Gazzara's face shows so much menace, anger. At some point, guilt. At some point, like, and it's just in these half facial expressions, like partial facial. Yeah,
is alternately endearing and absolutely terrifying.
Yeah,
very subtle too.
In the same 15-second period, and it is holy crap impressive. Because remember, this is like his third movie, one of which was a stage play adaptation, so we can't even count that. Dude came correct.
Yeah, if there was a remake of this movie, who could play him? Glenn Howerton, because if you ever watch him as Dennis in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, he's able to change his facial expressions so easily, where it's like he's like sad.
The Blackberry movie.
Yes,
I can't believe I'm saying this, but was it the Blackberry movie? Yeah, right.
Yes.
Is that, he was so goddamn good in that, and I was like,
very subtle with changing. Like, it's crazy how some of these actors can do that. I think I could do that, but
I remember when he showed up in season. They had everybody fucking show up in season 1 of Fargo, but when he shows up as the spray tanned gym instructor guy, right. and he's just so he makes himself so pathetic throughout that it's like genuinely impressive.
Yeah.
But I mean, wild. Like George C. Scott and freaking Ben Gazzara, at the beginning of their careers. Crazy.
Just getting started.
I don't know. I think the facial expressions that Gazzara is able to make just through react shots, because we see more react shots of him and Lee Remick than anybody else, right? Like, them looking at each other, and you can see he's at different times he's deliberating on how he's gonna slap the shit out of her when he gets out of jail.
Yeah. Well, when I was looking the George Scott's Wikipedia with his little mini generalization about him, the first thing you see above his photo or whatever is that with a gruff demeanor and a commanding presence, Scott became known for his portrayal of stern but complex authority figures. He was almost typecast in that regards.
Yeah, there's a really funny funny story about which one day we got to do an episode on it, but when he's in Doctor Strangelove, there's this hilarious story that he tells, and where he didn't really know how to do comedy to that level, right?
I feel like we talk about Doctor Strangelove so much it feels like we've done it, but we have definitely not done that movie. That's hilarious.
So in Doctor Strangelove, right, Kubrick kind of, because how much of an asshole Kubrick was to his actors. So what he basically did.
But did you know that he tortured Shelley Duvall? Did you know that? Did you know that?
So there's this
never heard of it.
One of the famous
news to me
stories about it. George C. Scott
to her apparently
was deeply uncomfortable doing a lot of those scenes, and afterwards he would drink because he's it was just so nerve-wracking. He would drink, and then Kubrick would be like, "Hey, just to loosen up or whatever, now that you're hammered on wine, now that you're completely you're making it. You are.
I'm the body.
But now that you're completely
Kristina,
hammered on,
look what I can do. Look what I can do. I'm the body. See?
There you go.
So he'd be Kubrick would be like, now that you're completely hammered on wine, can we just mess around, improv? You do one more take while you're wasted, and let's see what you can do. And he's like, no, because I know you're just gonna use that take. And Kubrick is like, I would never use that take without your permission. Don't worry about that. So George C. Scott would do these extra takes while just completely smashed, and then Kubrick would only use those ones.
It's crazy to think, my favorite YouTube videos to watch sometimes are here's bloopers from old Hollywood films, because yes, old Hollywood did have bloopers and reels that, and I'm like,
they just didn't think to play it over the credits yet because they put the credits first.
I was like, what the hell? I'm like, I can't. This is weird. Too bad there were no bloopers for whatever happened to Baby Jane, because I guarantee there's probably not. But can you imagine this movie having so many bloopers where it's like, oh man, I forgot the rest of my monologue or whatever.
There's
like,
some
Your Honor,
fire for non
lion. Not guilty. Not guilty.
For a non-comedy, there are some fire bangers in this.
Well, they're cracking up the whole courtroom.
Yeah,
like,
whole courtroom's like I've heard
Order!
I've heard way less laughs on Saturday Night Live. You know, I mean,
I know.
it's like
I
you have a
love
studio
Liars
audience,
came
don't
back.
you?
I love when the sleazy bartender guy, right, is on there, and he tries to make a wise crack. He's like, he says something to try to be funny to like make everybody in the court laugh, and the judge is like, please leave the one-liners to the lawyers and just
Lawyers, yeah, who are doing great, by the way. They're killing the game right now.
They're literally killing it by making the courtroom laugh. Okay.
Yeah. Jimmy Stewart brings on the dog. There's that scene where he's like, let's bring on the dog. And George C. Scott's like, Your Honor, his voice is so funny, but he's like, if I was to object right now, I believe that he would say that we're the haters of all furry animals. So he's like, okay.
I do declare.
The judge just goes, it'll be nice to see someone who's not talking for a change. And like that whole exchange.
Right, yeah. Well, there's some. It's not just them that get some good lines. I mean, Eve Arden, like his assistant, like has some great. Like you can't fire me until you pay me. Like great. That's rock solid lines.
She
has
was
some
always,
badass lines.
Eve Arden is such a great character actress. Like she was in Mildred Pierce. A lot of us know her as the principal in Grease. She was also in Grease 2, which is superior. But she was known as one of those good character actresses, but because she was so tall and had a very like almost masculine presence. Yeah. She ended up always playing like that same type of character, like, you know, the best friend of like a male character or like an assistant to a male character or whatever. She was not.
And this is very much a His Girl Friday kind of situation. Yeah. I mean, she got like, if this refrigerator gets any more fish in it, it'll swim upstream and spawn by itself. Great. That's rock solid. That's so good.
Well, a lot of the time when you have characters though that are like that, right? Like the assistant or something. Like they're very like she comes off as someone holding her own and kind of just doing it for the love of the game. Like more than a lot of movies where they would have, you know, some flirty person being like, oh, please.
Especially for 59, especially. Yeah. I mean, like,
So I've found that I liked that document, like the parts I saw anyway of that documentary. And so this is the George C. Scott part of it that I found.
Murder. And once again, there was controversy on and off the set. It was the story of an army officer on trial for killing a man he claims was trying to rape his wife. A small-town lawyer agrees to defend the killer who was confronted by a slick, ambitious prosecutor.
All right, stand by. Can I see how you start? Action.
I went to New York and met Otto. At that time, he was living in an apartment across the street, I believe, from the Russian consulate. And the occasion was Anatomy of a Murder, a novel. It was an enormous bestseller. It was turned on a trial, and the trial turned on rape. And one of the problems with the piece was there didn't seem to be any way to do it unless you used the medical terms. Well, in those years, the medical terms were taboo. So I saw Otto. I had met Otto before because I'd been an actor and I'd been interviewed by Otto a number of times, but he didn't remember me at all, you know. But anyway, I told him about my misgivings about trying to do Anatomy of a Murder. And I said, I don't see how I can write this unless I can use the words that are necessary. And Otto said, Bendel, you write it, I'll shoot it. Well, you know, I'd heard that before. Well, the fact is, I did write it the way I said I was going to, and he did shoot it that way. And then he came up against the censorship board. Well, the censorship board at that time was almost impossible. But since the terms were all medical terms, Otto fought for them and threatened, as a matter of fact, to release the picture without any kind of a recommendation from the board at all. So he made only one compromise, and he called me on the telephone, and he said, oh, Otto always called me when he wanted to change the script, which was an interesting thing in the Hollywood life. And he said, we have to change the word penetration to violation. He said, that's the only thing I gave on.
Anatomy was the second picture I made, and I was on Broadway. I think. No, wait a minute. Yes, I was. Doing something, but I can't remember what it was. And Otto had seen me, I think, yeah. Anyway, he sent me the script. And he wanted me to play the bartender, which was a nice little part. And I, of course, was a relatively unknown actor, obviously. Except I was known in New York. Anyway, I read the script and said, wow, there's this dazzling joker who comes in, the attorney from Lansing named Dancer, and you got a name like Dancer and you're from Lansing. I mean, how can you lose, you know? It was a terrific showy part, in other words. So I went in to see him. Otto, as you know, was a very imposing man, very intimidating man. And he said, well, what, do you want to play this part? What? I said, no. Why not? I said, I'm going to play this other part. Oh. Okay. Just like that. Never thought a few seconds. I was stunned. And that was the kind of fellow he was. He was he could make a decision, at least I found out that he was a decisive personality. Flamboyant, very colorful man, and very sweet-natured man in many ways. Very gentle man in many ways. Although he'd have these enormous tirades and that were so famous about him, you know, where he'd turn purple and the back of his head would get orange, and you know, it was frightening to see him like that, because you thought surely he was going to drop dead in front of your eye. But I don't know how much of that was for effect, how much of it was his acting training. I have no idea.
That's wild.
For a theater guy, he probably got out of that voice the older he got.
Yeah.
He sounds so calm and like raspy, and you know.
There's something there's something very flamboyant about his whole I don't know how much of it was an act.
How he carries himself. Yeah.
You could tell it was a theater guy.
Did either of you ever see the preview, like the trailer for this movie?
It's Preminger and it's John Volker, right?
Yeah, and he is swearing in the actors, and like it's a whole it's a bit. The whole thing is a bit. It's hilarious. It's super funny.
I think
he promised to do the best performance, the only best performance. So you have
right, yeah, and the whole time you see Jimmy Stewart's trying not to crack up too. It's really funny.
Kind of trailer that I think was copied from Hitchcock, right? Where Hitchcock would come on and do that kind of trailer, and I think Otto Preminger started doing that kind of thing too. Which
Jimmy Stewart's I have experience with Hitchcock.
But it's like the trailers could no longer be trailers, because it's so many movies drop every year at some point, right? You have to do something that sets your movie apart.
Especially since television was still very new, and you know.
And also, you're dropping a movie where you have Jimmy Stewart saying sperm and sexual climax in a movie, so it's that's you need to let people know what time it is.
The Hays Code was collapsing.
Well, the next year was Psycho, and that's when that was Hitchcock delivering the death blow to an already weakened Hays Code. A big part of it was people like Preminger who were able to actually deliver a movie without they could just put a movie out without getting it certified at some point, and he kept threatening to do that, and everyone kept backing off.
That's wild, man. Preminger's I'm a big Preminger fan. I think he's an interesting filmmaker. I think he's kind of underrated, really, and probably because of the times that this was. I do think it's wild. We've talked a lot about George C. Scott, Bette Gazzara, Lee Remick, not the first choice. It was Lana Turner or Jane Mansfield.
Lana
Which-
Turner. Oh,
Both of those. So they're both great, but
Yeah.
those are different movies.
Yeah, I
Those
mean,
are
not
like
saying Lana-
wildly different movies.
Not saying Lana Turner, but also too, I believe this was around the time her daughter was in prison for murdering her gangster boyfriend or whatever at the time. I
Yeah.
believe. I think it was around that time. But I mean, Lana Turner really wasn't getting many roles as she got older. She was the beautiful blonde of MGM, and James Mansfield. I mean, whoo-hoo.
Well, she ended up Lana Turner ended up doing
First,
Imitation of Life the same year, which actually was a huge, it was like one of
Yeah.
the biggest financial successes she ever had. But like,
Yep.
Yeah.
I think Lee Remick works here because she's beautiful, but she's not.
She's very simple.
She's not.
She's
Yeah,
very
she's not
simple
like.
being.
She looks like a UP
Your girl next door.
Yeah.
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 Jane Mansfield would be wonderful, but distracting. I mean, it's.
I mean, you
it's
mean
not-
Mariska Hargitay's mother?
Exactly, I do.
He looks like her too, but like brunette,
But she originally had the role of Mary Plant instead, and then basically, and she turned it down. And then like Preminger's like, oh well, actually,
I'll give you the better role.
I'll give you the better role.
By the 60s, Jane Mansfield's career had slipped because after Marilyn Monroe died, no one wanted, voluptuous blondes with big breasts in film, really. And of course, she tragically died in that car accident. But by the 60s,
Boy, was my finger not on the pulse at that time. But anyway, I wasn't born.
People were wanting more, simple, looking women, and the 60s was a different time. So, but yeah,
the
interesting.
woman that actually played the Mary Pliant role was Bing Crosby's wife.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, the mother of the three sons he abused. That one probably.
I mean, probably from 1957 to his death in 1977. Yeah, her name was Catherine Grant at the time. I think or whatever earlier in her career, but then it became Catherine Crosby.
Well, that sounds better.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering if I had seen her in anything before. Like,
She actually only died last year.
Oh wow!
That's right.
Although she was pretty young in this, but
yeah,
something also. Yeah, that's crazy. Wow, because this is 59, right? Wild. The
a bit young. Is there any other casting choices?
Pat Hingle was originally cast as Mitch Ludwig, but had to drop out when he was injured to fall down an elevator shaft. That's jacked up. Pat Hingle, Commissioner Gordon in the Batman, in the
Adam West.
The 89, 97. Yeah, I mean he's a that guy. He's a that guy actor. And I think he was. Is that the guy? He's been in other stuff. He's been in a bunch of things. But anyway, he fell down an elevator shaft, which is horrible.
Yeah, that's crazy. Elevators used to be a lot more simple back in the day.
But yeah,
he was on the waterfront.
That's right. Okay, that's what I was thinking of. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So notable too. We mentioned in the intro. This is based on a real life murder case.
Yeah. Which only happened a couple of years. It happened, I think, in 1952 or 1953. It only happened a few years before this, and so they were actually shooting, and the guy was still fucking at large because he also really did scam John Volker, out of that $3,000 that he really needed at the time, and he had to shut down his private law practice.
Jesus.
Because
that's in the post credit scene.
But he ran off with the $3,000 and his wife, and I would have felt very eerie about that fact because that guy's still at large. You don't know if he's gonna go, oh, I don't like the way I was portrayed in the novel. I found out that because the novel would come out first. It's a year before, and it's I don't like the way that I'm portrayed in this, and I'm gonna take it out on because the guy who actually wrote it, right, the guy, Robert Traver, John Volker, that guy, he's actually on set with them and stuff. And helping out with the scripting and everything, and literally they were filming in his office, and you can imagine a disgruntled psychopath like that coming and bringing a gun and
screwing up your world. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, absolutely, totally.
Wow, I was looking on July 31st, 1952. Lieutenant Colonel A. Pearson shot and killed Maurice Chenoweth, any relation to Kristen Chenoweth's that's a very rare name. Okay, yeah, at a tavern in Big Bay, Michigan. Walker was retained as defense attorney a few days later. Pearson's wife tried to claim Chenoweth raped and beat her. Yeah, it started on September 15, 1952. And the jury deliberated for 4 hours for returning verdict of not guilty by reason of insanity.
Yeah, for the actual thing in this thing.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not uncontrollable urge. That's a Devo song, but it's something like that. By the way,
your uncontrollable impulse.
That sounds right.
And it's the real. What did they say? It's the People versus Durfee. That law case from 1886. That's the real law case that actually established irresistible impulse as a as a law thing in Michigan. Like literally, like because the book was
Twinkie defense or whatever the hell it's called. Like
it's like a very 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 thinly veiled literal novelization of
like a crime of passion almost
of this story. But an interesting fact about it, talking about the upper peninsula stuff. The governor Soapy Williams at the time, right, ended up appointing John Volker as the as a Supreme Court, like state Supreme Court justice, because there was nobody from the Upper Peninsula that had actually represented anything on the state Supreme Court in years.
Again, because that's a divide between the lower part of Michigan and the Upper Peninsula, who basically, were always permanent afterthought, right?
Yeah.
Except for fishing and like summer activities.
Yeah. Are you guys aware of another well-known court case that used irresistible impulse as a defense?
I don't.
In 1994, Lorena Bobbitt was found not guilty when her defense argued that an irresistible impulse led her to cut off her husband's penis.
Wow.
Your Honor, I am a simple country lawyer, but I know that if a woman bites off her husband's penis, there's got to be an irresistible impulse behind it.
Wow, that's wild.
Yeah. Hey, good for her. She was abusive and cheating on her, and he did porn with it afterwards. And I'm like, oh.
I never knew that.
Your Honor, I'm a simple country lawyer. I don't know nothing about cutting off no penises, but let me tell you something.
Yeah. So, did you notice anything interesting about this movie that covers a pretty interesting timeline? There's no flashbacks anywhere throughout.
Yeah.
I doubt they could have gotten away with showing, even though the Hays Code was collapsing. I doubt they could get away with showing.
Also, Otto Preminger hates flashbacks. He's refused to put them in movies.
But you did see I was surprised they showed this much the photographs of the body from right now. Right. They show in vivid detail. They're very funny because the guy's like,
Yeah. Well, I mean, Stanley Kubrick, he did the really very, very bad mid adaptation of Lolita, which is impossible to adapt to begin with because of the subject matter.
Yeah.
And it was like
that's the one Kubrick movie that I've watched halfway through and gone, I don't know, I can't do this.
Yeah, because it's just it's impossible to cover that. But like there were still rules where it's like Susan Lyne was like 16, but her and James. Oh God, what was his name? I forgot the actor's name. Fuck. But they were like, you can't do anything. The Hays Code is still a thing. And so you can't show a whole lot. So I'm like, I mean, doing a movie about a dude who like molests his stepdaughters, I'm like, yeah, you can't show that in 1962. Yeah. But it's shocking that photographs were allowed to be shown in the movie. Like,
and it's like a pretty vivid. It's like one pretty vivid photograph, and then like then they did the outline of where the body fell. But it's like it's surprising. But like you could also, I think Preminger was one of those very contrarian figures that's always trying to push the boundaries of acceptable, because I mean, I don't know, part of it is that he came from Austria and like had a lot of thoughts about like the Nazis. First they came for censoring the arts, and so he was constantly trying to push back against like the censorious regime that he saw in front of him. But like I think it's interesting that somebody like that, right, like it's like, what can we really get away with? But it's like this is a very like faithful adaptation of a courtroom story, so it's like they're getting away with shit under the guise of like this is also real. Like
also with James Mason, and who played what's his face in Lolita. So That was gonna bug me.
Speaking of this movie, which I forgot this one, I skipped over it, but before they gave it to Joseph Welch, the lawyer in real life, they offered it to Burl Ives and Spencer Tracy.
Oh,
which would
now
be
that-
very, very interesting. Both, but very different.
I don't think that Spencer Tracy would have been qualified to sit on the.
He probably would be like, as long as Catherine is in the film with me, I'll do it. We never done a Katharine Hepburn movie, have we?
I don't think so.
God damn.
But yeah, and Burl Ives is just like, I mean, he's in like East of Eden. He's in Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. He's a
have a holly jolly Christmas.
Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Heard of it, anybody?
Well, he was also canceled during the McCarthy era, so that kind of would have. I mean, it wasn't really until he did like the Christmas songs that he was able to come back because he was doing something wholesome and not threatening America or whatever.
Also,
interesting choice.
Since lots of stuff here was filmed on location in Marquette, Ishpeming, like it's areas around the Upper Peninsula, they had to recreate the bar because the bar did not exist in the hotel at the time. But it's funny because like where they actually shot it is like right by where the murders happened. Like it's like 40 feet away or something. Yeah. And I've played over there too. But they completed it in under 2 months, which is crazy. Like it's because this, I mean, it doesn't look rushed at all. It looks very. If anything, Christopher Nolan could never. Is kind of how I feel.
I mean,
he tries to film stuff in like 2 months, or even a month. But the Odyssey is going to take a while because he's going to use real monsters to freak Matt Damon out. He don't like to use the CGI.
The monster rights people really got to him.
They're going to use real monsters. He brings Harvey Weinstein back for the.
All right, that's good.
No, but I think it's like they use the real locations, and I think it's I don't know. I mean, part of me is like, I mean, if you're really filming in a courtroom and everything, maybe it goes by fast as long as everybody like knows their lines and knows where to show up and everything. But then also it's 2 hours. It's a 2 hour and 40-minute long movie. It's like really long.
So on that, Forrest, Joseph Welch did not memorize his lines. He read them off teleprompters.
I mean, he's not a professional actor.
Can't argue with the results. He wasn't a professional actor. No, exactly. So you can't argue with the results. And honestly, he gets a couple of the hardest bangers the entire time.
He seems like he's having a blast.
It's like, hey, let's just not make a federal case about it.
Yeah. He seems like he's having such a blast throughout the entire
he's like, I'm in a movie and I took down McCarthy. Yeah, that's me.
The first he's like phoning it in. He's like, because it's like in the beginning, I love that they add the extra thing that he's not the judge that's sitting on the bench. Like he's just a judge that they brought in because the judge is like sick or whatever. So it's like, oh, we got a new judge and he's
a substitute teacher.
Yeah.
And he took down McCarthy.
He's like, you guys are awful queer up here in the Upper Peninsula.
Couldn't take down Roy Cohn though, unfortunately. But whatever.
Yeah, but like, look, whether he's reading off a teleprompter, had his lines memorized. I mean, he's badass in this role. Like, I'm not.
I love how the movie's as long as Wicked is.
Yeah, it is like it's like 2 hours 40 minutes or something, right? Yeah,
Yep.
It absolutely is. But it is crazy. This is the first. I mean, it was seen as so controversial for explicitly handling the crime of rape.
Yeah,
like that was just not a thing done in culture at that point. Yeah. And that's crazy to think about. It's like, well, it's not like it wasn't happening. Like what we.
Yeah, I mean, To Kill a Mockingbird, that was about rape, right?
It's about it was about assault, but it was less explicit, and they danced around it a little more.
Yeah,
Yeah. But it's I don't know, man. This is one that I feel like is a lot more influential than people give it credit for.
Yeah,
because most people just don't know it because people don't watch anything older than 3 years old.
But,
whatever.
Unlike us, we're real cinephiles. Yes,
Exactly.
people talk about how it says that Conan is the greatest movie of all time. Newbies.
But yeah, I mean, I'm excited that we're ending the month with Anatomy of a Fall because it's sort of like, oh, that's like the natural inheritor for this. But it's kind of cool to see where it started too, and then take it down the line.
I think it's interesting that they try to keep the rape out of the in the actual movie, right? They try to keep the rape out of it completely, and it's like that's like that's the motive for
The crime or whatever. Yeah, his guilt.
They're like they're trying to see if they get away because of the time, right? Because like just the word panties is controversial enough that he has to he has to pause the entire case, call him to the bench, and go, "Is there a word we can use that doesn't make people laugh?" And like
underwear.
And he's like, "Well, I've heard there's a French word that I know." And it's like, well, French words are usually very titillating. So
Garnet? I don't know.
But I don't know what he was thinking of.
But like up until that point, they're trying to keep the rape out of it completely, and it's like,
it's like it's kind of amazing. It's like, wow, all right,
like that wouldn't like I don't think you could do that.
How would you even do that?
Yeah, like in a movie today, I don't think that they could get away with doing that. Like trying to keep the rape out to the last minute. It's like everybody knows everything about everything so quick. And in this movie too, because I mean, there's already mass media. Like they're like, oh, we've heard about this in the papers, like before it even goes to trial. But
some stuff does end up making national news, depending on how
Yeah, well, at least
like the irresistible, whatever like that. What the hell? Like seriously, like that's probably why I made like big news. Or like, look at this defense. What is this?
Well, and it's not a place where a lot of things happen.
Yes,
that's the thing to remember. I mean, the actual population of it's not actually Iron City. It's Iron Mountain, but it's something like 7,000 people or something, and that's like now. Like, what was it then? Probably not that much more. And so it would have been huge news. Actually, I guess in 1960 it was 9,299 people. So okay, that's quite the population bust. But it would have been the biggest thing that had happened, right?
I like that there's a just a page that's a list of homicides in Michigan that is linked to on the Wikipedia, and it's like there's got to be enough more than just this.
That's just the notable ones, Yeah. Can't every homicide can't be included.
Damn, a lot of them are race riots.
Yeah, well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look at what happened at Emmett Till. That bitch lied, and she should have, even though she was old as fuck, she still should have, suffered the consequences of her action.
She only died last year, right, or 2 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. That's not that. That's she, and this happened like what, in the 30s?
Yeah.
I mean, Emmett Till happened in the 50s, but
Oh yeah, it happened in the 50s, but she probably was born like in the 30s then. So still, fuck her.
But it's like I don't know. It's like I'm kind of glad that we didn't pull speaking of that, like To Kill a Mockingbird into it, because I feel like that adds like a dimension. As much as I like To Kill a Mockingbird, like as a book and stuff. Like,
we all had to read it.
It adds like a racial dimension to stuff that's like like you have to then go back and like contextualize it. And I mean, one day it'd be cool to do To Kill a Mockingbird.
It'd be cool to do it. I think it's it's hard to kind of stay focused, and it's funny to say that we're staying focused when we also have My Cousin Vinny and Legally Blonde in the same month. But I swear to you people, there is a method to the madness. It's all there for a reason.
Yeah,
and it's. You can't, if you're going to really examine things as a larger genre or style, then you kind of have to call your shots a little bit. Sometimes something can be a great movie and just not fit for the theme. Or if it fits, it would like, well, now we're talking about this instead.
Yeah.
We talked about doing it in Cold Blood. But it's like, okay, that kind of,
the
now
central
we're talking
story
about murder. And then, hey, everybody, Legally Blonde. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, well, like with the Kill Mockingbird, the focus isn't really on, Gregory on Atticus. It's more about Scout. It's about her perspective, so it wouldn't fit this theme because
exactly.
A child.
So it's not like we're not going to do that one. We'll do that one.
We do Children Month.
But anyway,
start with To Kill a Mockingbird, you end with Home Alone.
Oh my God, that'd be so cool though.
Hold on. We could do something with that.
So we'll do another month.
Listen, kid. Letterboxd is a social media site for film lovers talk at, with, and to each other about the movies that they love, maybe the movies that they didn't love, maybe the movies that they were just really disgusted / entranced in hearing Jimmy Stewart say panties. Of course, all of this...
Spermatogenesis occurred.
And of course, everyone gets out there say, not just Siskel's and Eberts of the world. It's a bottom-up democracy. Everybody gets to chime and opine about the movies, and we collect those weekly, put them up on screen for the panel to look at, react to, etc., etc. These are best expressed succinctly. These are the letterbox one-liners for Anatomy of a Murder. Let's go. I like the part where Jimmy Stewart requested for the victim's dog to be in the courtroom.
Well, your lawyer had to do that before there was such a thing as
you need a character witness
as an emotional support dog.
Yeah, that'd be part of the legal team.
Character witness,
Exactly.
My client has an emotional support dog that she needs to bring into the testimony.
Man, can you imagine? I wonder how Upper Michigan feels about a film centered around rape and murder being their number one piece of representation.
Oof.
I mean their PBS their local news station seem to love it because they every few months there's some like old lady that's like I'm gonna take you around the spots from the 1959 hit movie Anatomy of a Murder.
Yeah. I mean, like most people I know a lot of people in that peninsula actually, and most people are like, "What? Anatomy of Murder? What's that?" But I don't know. Maybe probably depends on the person. Punk scene not as interested.
Anatomy of a Murder.
I don't know. I can text some of them now.
They gotta have a death metal Anatomy of a Murder album.
Take a shot whenever somebody says panties. You'll be dead before the third witness.
Panties. Is there like a YouTube video that just says like every time panties?
There's gotta be.
It has to be. Come on.
Panties. Your Honor, we found her panties. They're quite large.
Courtroom dramas really do it for me, mainly because I'm messy and I live for the tea.
Spill the tea. Spill the tea. Spill the tea.
I mean, there's literally a YouTube channel called Tea Spill.
I mean, there's a lot of ones.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of internet out there, my friend. I believe you.
I just really like the idea of Jimmy Stewart telling somebody to spill the tea.
Spill the tea.
I know you're a messy bitch.
Spill the tea, you messy bitch. I broke my no impressions during Letterboxd one-liners rule just for that, and you know what? I'm okay with it. When the Wikipedia page is long, you know it's good.
Yeah.
Tag, not an airtight theory. Jimmy Stewart gravely talking about sperm was for sure one of my more surreal movie moments I've witnessed. Also, Duke Ellington. Holy fire.
Ooh.
Yes. Agreed.
To quote Cillian Murphy, fire, 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 fire.
Was spermatogenesis occurring at the time?
Spermatogenesis.
Was it occurring at the time of the murder?
How much sperm was in there? George C. Scott and Ben Gazzara playing the two worst people in this whole movie. I am fighting for my life.
George C. Scott's accent in this is so crazy, though.
Yeah, but he's also like that's a kind of a crazy character too. Like
yeah, but I love that their version of like Lansing though. It's just like he's come all the way up there for Lansing, and he's like, "Your Honor." Like with the weird like British accent almost.
Right.
Your Honor. Oi, Your Honor.
That dog would be fun at parties. Yeah. Absolutely.
The dog smoking a cigarette and he's like, holy fuck, you'll never guess what happened to me in court today.
I liked when James Stewart was like, "Hey, Judge, can Lee Remick's dog do some tricks for all the folks at the court now?" And the judge was like, duh.
Man, they talk about the dog more than the panties in these one-liners.
The panties ones weren't funny. It was like, yeah, I heard it. I saw the same movie you did. Like, Jesus, that's enough.
Panties, Judge, panties.
I mean,
exclamation point panties. Panties has been mentioned 259 times.
I know. We put the counter up. I feel like it's addressed in canon too when he basically said, all right, get it out of your system,
well, they'd never heard something like that before at the time.
But the word had never been spoken aloud.
Panties, that's how you say it. I thought it was
it's so great.
I thought it was pantes. I thought it was
from the Latin. Speaking of which, all right, you ready for it? We're gonna be talking about the panties. Do you find that amusing, butthead?
he literally turned to the court and he was like, he did say it.
We really need Ryan Gosling and Mickey Day as Beavis and Butthead for this occasion.
Oh, man, that bit is so great. I mean, you have to know anyway. You know what other bit is great is that bit, the Letterboxd one-liners for Anatomy of Murder. Please follow the show at our Movie Night Extra Letterboxd HQ account, where we have lots of stories of all of the various episodes of movies that we cover, links to attendant short-form content, things along those lines. It's a really good time, and at some point, we're going to get caught up on it, too. It's going to be great. It's going to be wonderful. It's going to be amazing. Panties, Your Honor. Really? Okay. That's always Flacco. That's Forrest over there, your host.
I changed it from Anatomy of a Flacco, but I felt like...
There you go. Got to strike while the iron's hot. The comedy gods will not bless you.
Strike
while the iron's hot.
You got to strike while the iron's hot. Panties, Your Honor, there's a big pair of panties.
Always Flacco. Follow him along for all the movies that we're covering here, as well as the other things that he's watching, both related to this show and not on Letterboxd. I, of course, am at Conan Neutron. You don't have to love him, just defend him. I'm doing the highbrow, the midbrow, the populist fare. Follow me along for the Criterion Challenge.
Man.
Okay, tell me about that.
The Criterion Challenge, which is how I discovered this very movie, by the way. And I think it was first year. I can't remember.
I discovered on Turner Classic Movie.
Okay, well, that's not relevant to what I was saying, but I appreciate that you said it anyway. So follow me like for that at Conan Neutron. Kristina, Anatomy of Fall. Wait, wrong movie. Yeah, that's later in the month. At Kristina on Letterboxd. Follow her for all the stuff that she deigns to log now that we're out of Oscar season. All right, Let's hit it with the plugs.
If you're watching us on YouTube, please like and subscribe, and then hit the bell to get notified whenever we're streaming. And we'd humbly request that you watch the video to the end, because it helps us with the algorithm and helps more film fans to discover the show. We're also monetized. If you want to get your chat questions definitely read on stream, you can always send us a super chat, which will help us keep the show going. Every cent helps. If you're watching on Twitch, you can gift us a free sub on Amazon Prime with your Prime membership, but getting subs on Twitch is always appreciated, and it helps to follow us on there as well. We also have an audio feed, which is available wherever you download podcasts, if you prefer to listen to podcasts rather than watch the stream. That's updated usually the same day we stream, but watching on YouTube and Twitch is the best way to get the show first, live as it happens. If you want to support us with a monthly donation and get access to all of our after parties forever, which go patron only after we do them, you can become a patron at patreon.com/movie night extra. Link is in the description for that. It really helps us keep the show going since we do have some expenses to make this happen. We also have a Discord community. Link is in the description for that. We sometimes watch movies we cover on there. We get into conversations about everything from film to TV shows to related podcasts. We even have a Discord channel for memes. It's really fun on there. You can find us on all the social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, Twitter, and Threads. You connect with us on all of those. Talk to us. We'd love to hear from you. Lastly, we recently made a TikTok at Movie Night Extra where we're putting up short-form clips from the episodes. Okay, passing this to Conan so he can tell you about his music and this week's Protonic Reversal. Conan, who's on Protonic this week?
Yeah. We're shifting full on into Neutron Fens land, but we've got Ray Washam of Scratch Acid coming up. And he was somebody who has been on the show in the first year that I did it. So it's been a very long time since I've had him on. Very excited to talk to him. One of the greatest drummers who played in the band with Steve Albini and David William Sims, who shall not be named as well. This is very much a not a good band name, but they're a great band. And then I got Robert Cassis of 1001 Album Complaints and the Beverly Crushers, the Star Trek themed rock band, coming on again, talk about their new record. And I just actually confirmed that Brian Giles of Red Fang coming up on the 20th as well, which will be the last one before a bit of a hiatus due to all of the wonderful touring that we're going to be doing. Way of the Neutron's new Co-Neutron Secret Friends record.
Neutron.
NeutronFriends.bandcamp.com. Pre-orders available now for LPs, digital, and CDs. It is how we keep this operation running. So if you're the kind of person that listens to that kind of music, please consider dropping some change on that. Who Dares is streaming on all the things that we don't see much money from at all starting tomorrow. And then Sharks Keep Moving, next single after that, and Villainous Circumstance, the one after that. Playing LA this weekend, and San Clemente as well at the No Joke Gallery and the Redwood Bar. So if any of our West Coast viewers or listeners are around, come out to the show, come say hey. I'll be around. Plenty of time after the show since it's a matinee, kind of a hit and run warm up for flyers that I downloaded and didn't put up into the repository, so you'll have to take my word for it. We have Wild Antics in Milwaukee. We have Madison and Mickey's, Ghost Forrest, and Mr. Flies in Liars Club. All the shows with Mr. Flies, who are great. And then we go to Japan. So here is the Japanese tour poster that everybody, I'm sure, has already seen. But if not, we're going to Japan for 2 weeks. Couldn't be happier. These two are going to do like all the musicals in the world while I'm gone. I don't know what you're doing. I don't paid that much attention when you were talking about it. But I will not be on the show for a couple weeks, and I'll be back after that. I'm sure the crew will be holding it down with excellent stuff while I am gone, and not just doing this over and over again.
I know what you're talking about. I'm fine. Forrest, on the other hand, I don't.
Yeah, exactly. I'm good. This guy, I don't know.
Auga.
Auga.
Yeah, we said that a lot on Sunday night, didn't we?
Auga. We did. Caterwaul also.
I don't remember. I was kind of drunk.
No. Really? Caterwaul, May 23rd, 24th, 25th, 26th, Minneapolis, Minnesota. Something like 40 bands. Prices go up on the 10th. So if you're planning on going, you want to get a 4-day pass. They're gonna increase by an amount that I do not currently have in front of me. That would have been a good thing to have. As do single day passes. So if you thinking about going, you should buy a pass and not wait till the last second. I think that is. Oh no, wait, hold on. I was on the Crash Bang Boom podcast. That's up in podcast feeds everywhere. And I was on this week's 1001 album complete to talk about Harry Nilsson, the Nilsson Smolson record. So if you want to hear me talk about that with those guys, it's a very spirited episode. It's always, you never quite know what you're going to get. But yeah, I want to hear me talk to some Harry Nilsson. That was this Monday on there, wherever you find your podcast for that. There's a whole bunch more coming. Oh, Letterhack did a really great episode, actually, very in depth with on the record. So hit Matt Strackline up on his on the Letterhack YouTube channel if you don't already.
Huge fan of your music.
Yeah, no, he was very informed. Like I said, he's better informed than some actual music journalists. So, like, that's respect, man. That's matters a lot.
That's why we all love him over here.
I mean, don't take this lightly, you know. And we're gonna have him on for the Burbs, I think, after I get back from Japan, right? So that's gonna be great. First Joe Dante movie in this show, The Burbs.
The Burbs.
The Burbs.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a lot. I got a lot going on, and there's a whole bunch more media appearances coming as well. I'm just going to reiterate, if you're the kind of person that buys music, now is a great time to buy The Way of the Neutron, Conan Neutron, The Secret Friends. And I will leave it at that. I don't want to turn this into an infomercial, but it is how we keep the ship moving. So there you go. Kristina, what do you got?
Yeah, well, I mean, this is the week where my mom decided that we are going to work, and we're doing literally every single house that we have this week. So next week I got nothing to do besides stream, but I think I might be on the Power Report with Dan this Thursday. I think it's my week. That should be interesting. Probably going to talk about the State of the Union address, which apparently a lot of shit's going down right now, and it's just fun scrolling through Twitter to see what's going on.
We can follow along with some of it when we do the after party.
Yeah, I didn't even realize that State of the Union was tonight. I don't know.
I forgot either because the Oscars just happened, you know?
Yeah.
Trump.
But Shadow Saturday
what are
is
Trump's
still.
thoughts on the Nora?
I know, right? We need those. And of course, Shadow Saturday is happening, where it's getting crazy. Adam wants his Eve. It's becoming a sci-fi right now, and I think that's cool.
Yeah, that show definitely has way more seasons than I ever remember it having.
Well, it's a soap opera, which means
I
they
know.
aired
I know what
5
it is.
days. But I mean, I'm surprised it lasted as long as it did. But they kept doing like outrageous stuff, to keep the audience going, because Barnabas ain't a vampire at this point. So
right, and then like, oh, now he is again, and now he's not.
Yeah, they keep going back and forth, back and forth. Angelique, the witch.
But it is funny that they jumped into the future.
They do an alternative future timeline. Yeah, they do a lot of those, and that's what a lot of the Vampire Diaries get all that crap from, the doppelgangers and all that. Like, people don't realize, Dark Shadows is very influential when it comes to vampire lore, and people don't give it enough credit. But more and more people are hooked. More people come and they're like, I'm just gonna have your stream on in the background while I'm doing some work. I'm like, okay. And then like a few hours later, they're like, I couldn't get my work done. I've been actually watching this stream, and I'm like,
watch Dark Shadows stream once, Barnabas Collins. Yeah.
Yes. They love it. They love it. And it's funny watching like a lot of like older folks who grew up watching this stuff. They're like, yeah, I remember this storyline. I'm like, cool. I remember watching it on the Sci-Fi Network when I was home for school, fighting illness.
You're like,
oh, go ahead.
You're like old man. You know how to use Twitch.
I know.
It had a daily like comic strip of it for a while after it was canceled. Which is crazy.
Too.
Yeah, because it's like,
yeah.
I always felt like these long form stories. Like, how do you got 3 panels? What are you gonna do? Like, what kind of story are you gonna tell in 3 panels? Anyway, whatever. Neither here nor there.
They kept going.
Okay, exactly. Didn't slow them down.
Yep, and I contacted Catherine Lee Scott, who played Maggie Evans and Josette Dupre and a few Lady Hampshire, and she appreciates me getting more people to know Dark Shadows, but she finds it just as corny as she's like, oh, she's doing her own rewatch. She's like, oh my god, this is so corny. I can't believe how my acting was. And it's just
you should get her to rewatch on your stream. Like,
yeah. What's she doing? She's busy.
You're rewatching it on your own.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah.
Well, she's probably in England, so it's like that's got to be like some weird.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we're doing a rewatch.
But yeah, that's all I got really going on. Also, my Rio Vidal Death cosplay came. It's cheap. I'm gonna get a better one, but I want to kind of test that out.
Yes.
Cool.
We are doing an after party tonight where we
talk
about the show we just freaking did and the actual Oscars and all that kind of stuff. So
how back America is.
We're no longer woke, apparently. Awesome.
But Kristina, you got some final thoughts on this and what movies?
Yeah, I remember seeing this when I was probably really, really, really young on Turner Classic Movies, like I mentioned earlier, and I thought it was really good given the subject matter, because I didn't really know what rape was when I was like 8. I was like, oh wow, drama, cool.
Crazy way to find out.
Yeah, exactly.
Jimmy Stewart.
So innocent. Yeah. And I think this is a good start for this month. I mean, this is probably the court movie of all court movies. It's what kind of set the trend, and a lot of tropes were made from this movie alone. It's one of, come on, Jimmy Stewart's been in so many hits, but this is one of his like great like later roles to be, like before like 1960. Mm-hmm. So yeah, definitely watch this, guys. If you're someone who wants to like binge a bunch of like court movies, especially for this month, since we're covering quite a bit of them, this one, it should be definitely the first one.
Yeah. Conan?
Yeah, I gotta agree. It's one of the best courtroom procedurals I've ever seen, for sure. And I think it's so great to see, the whole country lawyer thing in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, which also never gets any due deference of any kind, is a very interesting place. I think Lee Remick and Ben Gazzara kind of steal the show in here. I'm a big Remick fan from both Facing the Crowd and Days of Wine and Roses. But, we haven't talked about her character that much, but like her whole thing of, it's almost a cliche now, the abused spouse who just can't leave the bastard. I think it's very good. I mentioned Gazzara being alternately endearing and terrifying, like in the same 30-second period. But the answer, here is always like, well, okay, definitely murdered him, but was it in cold blood and premeditated, or was it something else, right? And those are the kind of questions that we're going to be covering in a lot of these stories is it's the law and like what the legal representation is. So, I mean, I think we have some of the tightest and most riveting courtroom dialogue to grace the screen. And things that we think of as cliches were born here, but they weren't cliche at the time. Duke Ellington's score, amazing, wonderful, perfect. Cinematography on this is wonderful. We didn't even talk about the Saul Bass posters as well, which also they're around the same time.
Behind
so amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I remember we did our last Otto Preminger movie was Man with the Golden Arm.
Man with the Golden Arm.
It also had it with John Barber. Yeah, John Barber.
your buddy John Barber. Yeah.
Yeah, but it also had one of those Saul Bass posters.
That's right. He was doing his work then. The blocking on this movie, very good. Something that I think not a lot of people talk about. Really good blocking in this.
You got to have good blocking if you're doing a courtroom drama, right? Like it doesn't work without like literally having the people pace around in the correct ways.
Yep. I think this movie's incredible. It's a 5-star movie for me. I guess it was nominated for all kinds of stuff and it lost to Ben-Hur, and it is Ben-Hur and everything. But I think this is a better movie. Frankly, they're very different. But
yeah. Of course, that was like the era of like the epic film, and like, well, as long as it's big, you know what I mean?
Yeah, right, exactly. And this is the opposite of an epic film. It's like it all takes it's like mostly in like one small rooms.
Drama.
Exactly.
You'd hope
Ben who? Never heard of her. Thank you. Yeah.
Ben they them.
Really?
But but like you'd hope that you'd hope that they'd consider our justice system to be an epic thing too, but
no,
I guess
we're just built different.
But we'll jump
coming
over.
Up next week. What do we got next week? What's the next? Is it
My Cousin Vinny and
My Cousin Vinny? Then 12 Angry Men. That's right.
Yes.
Because I'm
12 Angry Italians.
12 Angry Italians.
12
Oh my
angry
god. Yeah, fun fact. A lot of people were like, is there such thing as the shortest Oscar speech? I'm like, we need to bring back the ancient text because it was Joe Pesci's speech.
Yeah, and he just said thank you, good night, or whatever, right?
Thank you, it's an honor. Thanks, bye.
Great.
Great stuff.
30 of those speeches.
He really hated I think he hated so many parts of like the whole glitz and glamour of acting, you know what I mean?
Yeah, when he hosted SNL, it was a weird thing, but whatever. Yeah.
And he also did a rap video. But so we're gonna hop on over there in like 10 minutes. Join us and order